Right, it's going.
Everything's going? All
All
right,
good.
clap again for me. Clap again for me. Thank you. Uh, all right, so introduce yourself for me.
I go by Side Eye Guy or Seg, and I am a YouTubing paranormal debunker. I suppose more of a let's say paranormal debunker, come just comedy roasting channel.
Um, why? Let's see here, because I am asking you the same questions that I've asked the paranormal investigators, but it has to kind of attribute to you. What made you want to be a paranormal debunker?
I suppose if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I find a lot of the material that I watch and react to pretty funny, and I the primary goal in my channel is to make people laugh first and foremost over everything else. And I think quite often with the more egregiously obviously fake channels, or at least channels that are very guilty, I believe, of overreacting, I think it's a wealth of comedy. And then I suppose after that, the truth is very important.
So the when you why debunking? Because there were so many other ways you could have gone with being. I mean, you are hilarious. What you do is really there's a lot of value in what you do. Why was it debunking that you were just like, this is this is it?
This is going to sound quite cheesy, but in a weird way, the debunking side of the paranormal more found me. I really did start off just as a comedy reaction channel. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to watch these videos from the perspective of a skeptic, and I wanted to try and make people laugh through watching that. And then as the videos went on, because of my natural skepticism, I started seeing things in a different way, and I started realizing, hey, wait a minute, there's one thing that's like funny to and like to pick apart the logic of certain things, and I think that can kind of just picking apart an argument and looking at it logically in and of itself can be considered debunking. But then that sort of stepping stone led on to me discovering and going down some rabbit holes of some like finding out some information where you're like, oh no, this is actually far more egregious than just this is like silly. This is like, oh, there's some channels out there that really are outright faking their content and to make money off it.
Um, so are do you have any belief in the paranormal at all?
So when I was, I want to say 11 or 12, I believe I may have seen a full bodied apparition. um, I'm not sure. Do you want me to go into that?
Absolutely.
So and when as I explain this, I do try and stay consistent with my skepticism and this, like, if you will, debunking kind of attitude for this, because I debunk myself on this often. Um, so long story short, when I was a kid, me, my brother, my younger brother, and my mum were all really into the paranormal. In the UK, there was a show called I believe it was called Strange But True, and with a question mark, strange but true. And it was like, it was a 30-minute show, two halves, and each half had its own like short story of a haunting or a haunted location in the UK. Um, and sometimes it was complete nonsense. Even as a kid, I realized it was complete nonsense. But other times it was like, it was really spooky, it was really interesting. And one of them was Dover Castle. And underneath Dover Castle is a bunch of like tunnels. It's a big tunnel system. And during World War II, this tunnel system was used as a World War II hospital. And in the Strange But True show, they were other people were going on there and talking about the sightings they've seen and tour guides, because you could only go down there by a guided tour, I believe. At least that was the case in the 90s when I was a kid. And they and me, my brother, and my mum all went to Dover, the underground tunnels of Dover Castle, wanting to see something paranormal, which in and of itself, you're psychologically, you want to see something and you're more likely to see it. If you go there blind, not even knowing it's supposed to be paranormal, the likelihood of you seeing something is going to be significantly less. But this is the interesting thing about it, is all three of us believe we saw the same thing. Now, this was a long time ago. Me and my mum's account of what we saw is more similar to my brother's. My brother is a couple of years younger than me. He does believe, he still remembers he's seen something, but how he remembers it is a little bit different. Like the movements of this apparition was a bit different to us. And this is my thing, is like, I could say my mum may have unwittingly influenced us. It could have been that memory is such a thing that can so easily be compromised. There's a lot of different things I could say which could lead me to believe that, maybe this isn't, maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. But all said and done, at the end of the day, I still got that in my mind. I can still see that image of that apparition, and it never goes away. And it changes even as a kid, it changed my whole belief system. So yes, I do believe I may have had a paranormal experience. Like, there's a good chance I didn't, but I may have done. Now, that's always stuck with me, and that's where my interest in the paranormal has come from. So when people ask me, like, do I believe in it at all, my brain says no, but me, I can't unremember or completely discredit what I believe I saw with my own eyes, and it will always stay with me.
I love that you answered that, because that was actually my next question. Was this thing that you saw obviously had an impact on you, and did it lead to your interest in the paranormal? Was basically where my next question was going to go, because yeah, that's really good. So it's safe to say that you were driven, interested because of something that you feel like you experienced, but you really don't know. So um, what are you looking for when you're looking into things that are paranormal because it interests you? It's obviously interesting you, like you're looking for something. What is that you're looking for?
First and foremost, I'm always looking for a laugh. That's kind of where my channel is. I'm always looking to make others laugh. But beyond that, I would say I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for something, like, all said and done, it's the biggest question that we can may well possibly ask, is what happens to us when we die? And if anyone says they 100% know, they're either crazy or they're lying. Nobody knows. And I would love it if one day we could maybe answer that question. And it'd be something that isn't just, well, you're worm food. As it happens, that's probably what I think it is. I'm more than likely we're worm food. Would I like to be wrong about that? 100%. I would like to be wrong about that. Nothing would grant me more pleasure than to know that there is some kind of life after this plane of existence. But I've got this habit of needing evidence to believe in such claims, and the only way to get this evidence is to explore, is to look into these things. But this is where my channel comes into it. Is that often the way a lot of these channels do that exploring and ask these questions is just in the most silly way, and they know full well they're doing it for the money rather than for the answers.
Yeah, you're looking at these people that are doing it for money and fame, or both, or most likely both, attention regardless. As somebody who's really looking for the answers, when you come across something like that, I mean, obviously it's comical to you, but how does it feel? Like, can you describe the emotion or multiple emotions that kind of happen when you see something like that?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking when I saw what I saw as a kid, or?
No. So, like, when you see something fake, when you see something fake, I'm
Oh,
sorry, I
okay.
probably didn't. When you come across something on YouTube where clearly they're doing it for attention, they don't care about whatever story they're spinning or whoever's name they're dragging through the mud or whatever. When they're trying to spin a yarn and make things more interesting, or what the heck ever they're doing, how do you react to that? How does that make you feel?
It it's a mixture of me finding it funny and getting angry with it, and quite often those two meet, that's where I believe a lot of the comedy of my videos comes from, is that I get very frustrated and very angry, and I try to portray that in a comical way. Um, the the truth of the matter is, like, it's not very often that you can prove 100% someone's fake. I've probably only got a handful of examples, and all the videos I've done where where I can prove 100% certainty that they're faking. More often, it's something you're looking at and you're like, this obviously isn't right. This is obviously not the way. This obviously isn't the truth of how they're portraying this to be. You get very strong intuition about this. Sometimes, like, we all know something that's obviously fake, and or it can be like, hey, I've noticed a little trick they've done in editing, or I can see that they're misrepresenting the history of the people that is supposed, the ghosts that's supposed to, the real the what when the now ghosts that were at the time like real people, and they're saying things about them, and you're like, no, history doesn't lie. We can see there's certain documentation we have, or we know that that's completely false. So when I can discover those sort of things, it's exciting. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, you've been on a couple of investigations now, a handful. Um, and I'm sure there are certain investigators that maybe you've kind of grown interested in, or trust. Is that accurate?
Yes, there's certain channels I believe are definitely credible. Yes.
Okay. So, with that, what do you think makes a valuable paranormal investigator? What do you think in order to be somebody that's really doing it for what do you think makes a good paranormal investigator?
Uh, in as far as their integrity, or in as far as what makes a successful YouTube channel?
Uh, I guess more for a personal standpoint, not so much a successful YouTube channel, but like when you're watching somebody and you think their credibility is good, you think they're a credible source, and they're not trying to lie to you. Definitely integrity is part of it, but yeah, the values that you see make a good paranormal investigator. Is that a better way to ask?
Yeah. Okay. So I understand what you're saying. So, because I believe there are paranormal investigators that are, as far as the YouTube world, are successful and credible, and unsuccessful, quote unquote, and and credible. Um, for me personally, I prefer a channel that is very careful on the language they use when they're talking about what evidence they've captured. I think it's very because there's some channels out there, and some of these channels may have done this at one point, but they don't do it anymore, kind of thing. But when they sort of say, "Oh, we've caught a ghost," it's like, no, you've caught something odd. Now let's talk about what happened and what possibility, what other possibilities it could have been for whatever you saw to occur. But when you ignore that process and you jump straight to ghosts, it's useless. It's completely useless. And the longer you leave it, like if you just go straight to ghosts, and the longer you leave it to explore the other possibilities, especially while you're on the location where you believe you believe you saw said ghost, it just gets harder and harder to acquire the correct information on what may have actually caused the occurrence. And where it gets really interesting are the channels that do their due diligence and do try and debunk and do try and find a rational explanation of what happened. And if they still can't find it, then it's interesting. Now that doesn't happen as much. It's a lot easier just to say you heard a noise, boom, it's a ghost. It's very easy, and it will whether you have faked that noise or whether it's a natural something that's actually happened in the environment, that is easy to do, and it's easy just to sort of say that's a ghost, and you get a bunch of people who are your audience and they're freaking out and they're getting excited and all the rest of it. But if you don't try and prove that it's at least something unexplainable, then it's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. You've got to at least attempt to, and then I hear some channels go, "Oh, we do attempt to do it, but we just don't keep that on camera." Why? Keep it on camera. That's the interesting bit. That's where it gets interesting for me. I think it's where it gets interesting for a lot of people, is when you genuinely try to debunk it and you can't.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So I imagine you didn't have time to check out the documentary between the last time we spoke and today.
I started watching a bit of the first one. It was good. I probably only got about 20, 25 minutes in.
Okay, fair enough. So you know enough because I showed you what I was working on, and you've seen that. So my friend Luke, right, the guy that went with me,
yeah,
he is looking because of his father dying when he was little, and it's very personal to him. You didn't reach the part, but I believe I told you about this with David Sear, who was his cousin was married to a serial killer who killed her, and then Kent had David out digging up holes and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know about Luke's why, and knowing what you know from what I've told you, which is accurate, about David and what he went through, how do you feel for them when it comes to people faking evidence and making their lives more difficult because of that?
It's quite possibly one of the cruelest things you can maybe do to someone. What Luke went through was horrible. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin how someone could do that to another human being.
Yeah. Yeah, it really bothers me. What for some reason, Luke's story, which he has a little short film he did called "The Dancer with Cancer," which is where I pulled my clips from. His father was kind of a famous dancer in Chicago, and he had a lot of respect from people, and it's no wonder that Luke admires his father the way he does. And it just, yeah, I don't know, it just gets under my skin. Obviously, you haven't been fooled by any evidence, where, you know what I mean, as in like, oh, ghosts, or maybe this is real, and then you find out that it's not real. That hasn't happened, has it?
Trying to think. Possibly. Has it ever happened? There might well be channels out there that I've sort of said I don't think they fake, and I could be wrong. But I haven't seen. I've seen some things where I'm a little bit like, oh, that is a bit of an exaggeration, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's fake. So no, to answer your question, no, I don't. Probably not. No, nothing that really stands out to me anyway. We're all susceptible to being fooled though. Like I've got no bloody superpower on that. Like I'm just as susceptible, even though I might be very skeptical. Doesn't mean I'm impervious to being fooled. Like we all, it just kind of depends on how good the person is at trying to fool you, or how convincing they are, or how manipulative they are, whatever way you want to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just asking that because it helps me with the rest of my questions to a degree. Let me ask you this: aside from any of that, I'm not asking you to tell me about it. I'm just personally, on a personal level, you, friend or family member or somebody that you cared about, you find out that you can't trust that person. I'm assuming that maybe we've all gone through that at least once in our lives. Um, can you describe what it feels like to learn that you can't trust somebody?
Yeah, that sucks. That's hard to go through. If you trust particularly if you trust someone with, say, some sensitive or personal information, and you trust that that person wouldn't tell anybody else, that they're going to keep that to themselves because you've asked them to do that. That's happened to me, and you end up finding out that they have blabbed that information, which you wanted to keep it, you know, confined just to that one person. That hurts. That's that, and you then kind of have to think to yourself, well, you have to come to the realization that that person can't be trusted now for probably the rest of your friendship, or rest of your relationship with that person.
Or the rest of your life, depending on how severe. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, there's a reason I asked that, and I know it's kind of a left field question, but there's a reason why I asked that. I've asked all of the people that I've interviewed basically these same questions, and yeah, there's a reason. Um, I guess I don't know if this is a fair, because the question is, what worries you about fake paranormal evidence? I don't know if it necessarily if you're worried, but like for a paranormal investigator, I understand what worries them, but I guess as somebody that's a debunker, maybe you're not necessarily worried about it, but at the same time, you're looking for answers. So, do you have any worries about fake paranormal evidence?
Yeah, it worries me when people believe in, or have their beliefs altered through something that is not true, whatever that might be. If you have changed your philosophy, your outlook, your position on life in any way, and sometimes it could be pretty extreme and have very extreme ramifications. If that has all come through basically a lie, yeah, I have a very big problem with that. Yeah, and it's one thing to kind of say like, oh, being untrue doesn't necessarily mean that someone is lying. It could be that the person telling the untruth has also been wrapped up in their own. They fooled themselves, and now they've just spreading that. That's an absolute possibility, um, for sure. And there's a lot of examples, not even within the paranormal sphere, but there's just a lot of things in general with that. But if you get a special kind of person that is lying for their own personal gain. Now, whether that be attention, whether that be for financial reasons, whether that be for malicious reasons, whatever the reason is, if you are lying to someone and you are willing to change their whole life and their whole philosophy on life, is completely wrong.
Yeah.
Can we pause for a second?
We sure can. It was basically about, if you had any worries about paranormal evidence. So, what you told me about that, what do you think fake paranormal evidence does to the field of the paranormal?
Makes a mockery of it. I'm very fortunate that with my channel, I've got to speak to some interesting people. I've spoken to Jason Hawes. I don't wish to make apologies for name dropping, but I spoke to like Jason Hawes, the Ouija Brothers, Paranormal Quest, channels who are pretty successful, and I consider them to be like pretty legit. Also, like some more modest channels on YouTube, like Joe Fatale, Entity Seven Paranormal Joe Fatale, Dawson Tola, Nightmare Nation, Weeping Willow Paranormal, Real Evidence, Three Spiral Paranormal. I could go on, and they all kind of pretty much say the same thing, which is why so many of them do support debunkers, is because when they watch some of these overtly fake channels, they realize why so many people give them weird, dirty looks when they tell them what they do, because there's so much bullshit out there. There's just so much bullshit out there, and they're out there trying to like find legitimate answers. Meanwhile, you got channels like Mindseed and Oh My Gosh who are just frankly taking the piss.
Yeah. Why do you think people falsify paranormal evidence?
Attention is a big one. I don't think anyone should ever underestimate the drug for attention. And money is a very big one on YouTube. Your videos do better, makes your channel grow, brings in more money, more ad revenue. You get more people watching, so more chances you'll get more memberships and patrons and donations. The more you fake, the more eyes you get on your channel, and the more that becomes a financial benefit.
So, you've said plenty to fakers out there with your videos, but let's say you're face to face with a faker, someone that you know is faking evidence. You're face to face. What do you say to them?
I've always sort of said that there's nothing, especially in the more later days of my channel. Maybe in the early stages, I was probably a bit harsher than I am now. But in the more later stage of my channel, there's nothing I would say in a video that I wouldn't say to the person I'm making the video off. I wouldn't say to their face. So I guess it would just be an out and out discussion on like, if you are going to defend yourself on something that I'm calling you out on, you don't have to kind of like, if you wish to do so, of course, I know no one has to defend themselves if they don't want to. If you say you're not faking something, yeah, that's absolutely fine, but I don't have to believe it. And if I present an argument why I believe what I'm seeing is fake, and if you wish to have a dialogue about that, we can have a very mature, open discussion about that. I won't be cracking the jokes maybe that I do in my channel. It would be a more serious discussion. But essentially what I say in my channel, I will just put forward in the most mature way I can.
Very good. Any other thoughts? Anything that you can think of that you want to address, or anything like that?
I would like it if it was possible, if I could like wave a magic wand and if I could wave a magic wand and say like these are some things that I just don't think should ever be part of a ghost hunting investigation, there would certainly be certain apps, certain devices, certain things that are just clearly, obviously nonsense. And they've been debunked. They've been shown how easily they can be faked or they can be compromised. They are very open and what's the word? Uh, they can very easily be compromised. You know, the paranormal park, many like a ghost talker, a spirit talker, excuse me, even a spirit box, which is just a radio. There's a lot of these things that are, and a lot of people just believe that is like a staple part of the paranormal. The amount of people out there that believe, and it blows my mind, that if you pay $3.99 and download an app, you have a direct means to communicate with the dead. And that is frightening that people really, really do believe that. So I really do wish more channels would take a responsibility on that. And first of all, just acknowledge that because you are using an app does not necessarily mean that you are then talking to a ghost. Well, it doesn't mean that at all. But even if you are more inclined to believe that it could be you talking to a spirit, use it. Language matters. Use words like this could be, not this is. And the amount that just really do make, especially impressionable young people or people that have suffered some sort of loss in their life who are desperately trying to find answers. The amount of people that come to me that tell me that they believed in channels that I think are complete nonsense, like Yasko and Mindseed, and they gravitated to those channels because they were grieving and they lost a loved one, and they were trying to find answers, and they wanted to go to channels who were searching for answers, and they didn't realize until they watched a debunker like me, or Be It or Get Scared, or Crow of Judas, Mythos Paranormal, except The Shape, etc. And they then realized, oh, I'm being fooled. This is nonsense. And they get very hurt. They get very angry because they feel like their grief has been exploited. So a big part of that is like leading a lot of people to believe that things like the apps and a lot of other devices are actual communication with the spirits, and it's total nonsense.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anything else. I mean, I could probably think of 150 more questions if I really wanted to, but I know we don't have time for that. And you've done really well for me. I appreciate your input on things like this, because I think the most important thing that the paranormal community needs are people like yourself, debunkers. And I think that they should work together rather than against each other. Do you have any
I
thoughts on
agree.
that?
I agree.
Very good. All right, my friend. Well, I'm going to let you tend to your children. I'm not going to take up any more of your time.
Thank you very much.